What's your reaction so far?
I'm actually enjoying it. I mean, without having any sports to watch at all, this is, to be able to watch this, and especially that was the time when I really started loving the Bulls because I lived in St. Louis. We didn't have a basketball team, and so that quick flight to Chicago was like it was just like where it would all go down. So all my boys, we would hop on a little Southwest flight and go to the games and hang out in Chicago. And so it was during this run that I became a big Bulls fan, and so I'm enjoying watching this story like being retold because you forget some of the details of how Mike kind of ascended to greatness, and so that's what I find so really great about seeing this documentary spread out and done very elongated like it is.
Cedric, my brother, always good to see you, my man. Let me ask you this
See you, Nate.
question. When we look at no doubt, when we see Michael Jordan in this docuseries, our level of appreciation seems to have elevated, obviously, because we're seeing the path that he took, like you said, as he ascended to greatness. When you see what Michael Jordan had to go through to get to where he is, does that put to bed all of these arguments where people, whether it's LeBron or anybody else, when people try to come up with somebody being greater than Michael Jordan, considering the era he went through and the eras of the NBA that followed?
Oh, without a doubt, to me, especially when you see, when they, those series, those losses to Detroit, how hard, how physical those games were. None of these players today. I mean, Bron does take a lot of abuse. Because of his size, I believe. To me, the league allows LeBron to take a lot of abuse, but I don't see nobody had to physically fight and physically lead a team and emotionally lead a team. Like you saw, it was many times that Jordan was the psychologist of that team as well. So you got Dennis, you got Scotty, everybody kind of like got their own degree of greatness, but going through emotional kind of stuff. And Mike being that consistent player. Kobe probably had to do something very similar like that in those last couple of seasons without Shaq, where he won. But Jordan was definitely, he that guy, man. He got MJ the great.
Cedric, there is a generation of kids who really isn't that familiar with Jordan. I know you could watch on YouTube nowadays, but is seeing things that hold up, like, oh my God, this dude is athletic. But I find myself reminded of things that, I had that aren't in the front of my mind, like, for example, how fast Jordan was. And then Roy Williams just came out on Colin Cowherd's show, I think yesterday, talking about reminding people he was clocked at a 4.38 at UNC. So that's something that jumps out at me like, damn, Jordan was fast. Just watching him, no wasted movement. Is there anything that you see that, having lived through it, that's like with fresh eyes, like, wow, man, I'd forgotten about that?
I did. It was, I think it was like in episode 3, they showed some of his really dynamic athletic moves. The same thing you said, Max. It was like the idea, you kind of remember certain things that he did, but you forget throughout the game, he was a guy who introduced this extremely fancy way of playing basketball. Like it was like, Dr. J was amazing and did really cool things, but Jordan was like a kid out there with all those guys. And I guess when you think about him coming from North Carolina and then coming into the league as this young pro with this more modern game, he was like the first guy that was a DVD in the world of all VHS players. That's what it felt like.
Sid, obviously you said growing up in St. Louis and not having a pro team there, you became a huge Bulls fan. So what was it like for you then when you had to see MJ in the Wizards uniform?
I ain't like that. That was one of those moments where you just believe like, no, this can't be true. One, the Wizards were just kind of like at the bottom of the basketball at the time. It just felt like, he was starting over. And it just didn't feel right. It was like Jordan is a Bulls player, and that's it, and that's period. It's gonna be like seeing Tom Brady down in Tampa. I'm not sure, even if I'm not a huge fan of Brady when he was with the Patriots. I don't want to see him on another team. I'm not sure I'm ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
over the last couple of days, we've been talking a lot because obviously Jordan in the second in part two, he felt like Scottie Pippen was being a bit selfish because Scottie Pippen had postponed his surgery because he didn't want it to ruin his summer, and he had ended up missing the first 35 games of the 1997-98 season. So Jordan spoke out against that in this documentary. He also spoke out against Isaiah Thomas because of the whole situation with him and going up against the Pistons, and ultimately the Pistons winning and Isaiah and them walking off the floor. That's made news over the last few days. How do you believe, based on the first 4 episodes that have aired, that Jordan looks, or how do you feel he should be viewed based on what we've seen in the first 4 parts of this docuseries?
Of course, knowing MJ like that too, I think that the way the documentary set up, he looks like the guy that was trying to lead. Because each time, the way they did it, even when he lost several times to the Pistons, back to back, he was a gentleman. He was a gracious loser at the time, even though you could tell he had the will to want to win every time he played the game. But he'd make sure he stay on the court, salute them, say what's up, all right, good game. And they was beating them down, like physically beating them down. And so for them to finally get that hump over and win it was really, to watch that, to see like the Pistons take that attitude, well, we just gonna leave out of here without giving you, your due, your respect after playing each year like this. I just thought that it looked good for them at the time, though. However, the Bad Boys was what galvanized black people. I mean, we love rowdiness like that. So, I mean, at the time, I didn't even see it as negative as I do now. Like now, I was like, oh, that was really kind of whack. But I remember, like, I loved the Bad Boys as much as I loved the Bulls at that time, just because they would, they had consistently went to play Boston, and you like, yeah, I don't care, beat Boston. I don't care who you do, beat them.